Welcome, everyone, to our dissertation toolbox. For this session, we'll be talking about plagiarism, what it is, as well as give you some strategies for avoiding it. So, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the concept of plagiarism. It's basically when you're trying to pass off some other person's writing or artwork or tables and figures as your own. And I'm sure that most everybody is also aware that you shouldn't plagiarize. Yes, it's a no-no. However, I think it's easy to get confused about what exactly constitutes plagiarism or what you can pull off as paraphrase. So I want to try to bring some clarity to that and show you some examples. But again, if you're plagiarizing, if you're trying to pass off somebody else's writing as your own, that is a no-no. So if you're going to use somebody else's writing, you'll want to put it in quotation marks and properly cite it. Otherwise, it's plagiarism. It is also plagiarism when, say, you have copied and pasted a sentence from another source and slightly rewriting it or rearranging the words a bit. That's also plagiarism. So it's important that when you are writing, you really start fresh and write with your own words and start from scratch and really don't have other people's texts in front of you when you are writing your own work. All right, so let's look at an example. This is a passage from Wikipedia. I took this passage from Wikipedia, and then I have shown underneath how a student might plagiarize it. So this example I took was on Abraham Lincoln. So let's go ahead and read the original version from Wikipedia. Abraham Lincoln was an American politician and lawyer who served as the 16th President of the United States from March 1861 until his assassination in April 1865. Lincoln led the United States through its Civil War, its bloodiest war, and perhaps its greatest moral, constitutional, and political crisis. In doing so, he preserved the Union, abolished slavery, strengthened the federal government, and modernized the economy. So that is the Wikipedia version. So this is a made-up example, but imagine a student then takes that work from Wikipedia and says, okay, I'm just going to change it around a little bit and pass it off as my own work. And this is what they write. The 16th President of the United States, politician and lawyer Abraham Lincoln, served from March 1861 until his assassination in April 1865. Lincoln led the United States through its Civil War, its goriest war, and possibly its greatest ethical, legal, and governmental crisis. Lincoln saved the Union, eliminated slavery, fortified the federal government, and renewed the economy. So I made a few little changes to that, rearranged some words, replaced some words with synonyms, but it's not really my own work. It's not my own thoughts. I could have rewritten that without having any understanding of Lincoln. So that's plagiarism. So it's really just not okay to simply rearrange the words a little bit. Like, also, imagine a student who has to write a report on Lincoln. If they only got to Wikipedia to try and rewrite that report, they're not going to be able to do much better than plagiarism. In order to write about Lincoln, they need to go to enough sources so that they can figure out about his life in order to be able to write about him. So I have to understand Lincoln enough in order to be able to generate new prose about him. And that's what you need to do in order to avoid plagiarism. All right, so when writing about others' ideas or work, you are writing from sources, and you're writing from sources. You need to understand well enough, the material well enough, so that you can put it in your own words. This means, yes, this means that you're probably going to need to go to multiple sources, really understand what they're saying in order for you to completely put it in your own words. So you really want to start from scratch. Also, you want to work from memory. So while it's okay to sort of cut and paste material into a roadmap or an outline while you're collecting material in the pre-writing stage, when you go to write, you need to synthesize and digest all of that material and start afresh. Work from memory, not just simply rearranging someone else's words. Okay. Also, you need to understand the material yourself so that you can draw your own conclusions. Why should you trust that the person who happened to write that in Wikipedia knows what they're talking about? If you just plagiarize their ideas, you're completely trusting that they completely understand Lincoln and have got it right, which they may not be right. So you need to go to multiple sources and make your own conclusions about Lincoln or whatever topic you're writing on. And again, you can't just mimic the original author's sentence structures or just rearrange the original author's words. That's still plagiarism. Okay, so another thing that students are often less aware of is that there is a concept called self-plagiarism. So recycling your own writing or data from one published paper to the next, that might constitute self-plagiarism. And that's also misconduct. That's also a no-no. So, this would be something like copying a chunk of paper that you have previously published and put it in a new paper, or slightly rewriting the text from an older paper. The problem is that if you're just rehashing old material, why are you even publishing a new paper at all? If you have to completely reuse old material, that means that you don't have anything new to say. So you can't just copy previously published text. Okay. Also, there's the issue that the text is now copyrighted if you have published it. That means it's owned by the journal. And so it's not okay to use it again for that reason. Oops, sorry. Now, there is an exception to this. For instance, you may have done one experiment that has many different data sets and that you write several papers about it. So some of the experimental methods from those papers may overlap. So if there is some repetitive material in the text of the experimental methods, it should not be huge chunks of text that are copied. But if some of the material methods you explain in the same way, that you explain the same way in multiple journals, journal editors are usually fine with that. But you don't want to take whole sections out of your introduction and just copy those. You actually need to start afresh and write anew. Otherwise, why are you writing a new paper to begin with? Okay, so now we're going to look at some strategies that can be used to avoid plagiarism. So I'm sure you've all heard of summarizing, paraphrasing, and quoting, but there can be some confusion on how to do them right. In this presentation, I will only be focusing on summarizing and paraphrasing. If you are looking for more information on how to quote things properly, I suggest you go to our Moodle on APA formatting, and that will cover more specifically the rules for quoting. So let's start with summarizing. Summarizing is taking a lot of information and creating a shorter version that covers the main points. All right, so we're going to take a look at an example. I'm going to show you again the original text and then the summarized version, and we're going to take a close look at it and see what exactly the writer did to summarize the main points. Okay, so here is the original text. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Luke Skywalker has vanished. In his absence, the sinister First Order has risen from the ashes of the Empire and will not rest until Skywalker, the last Jedi, has been destroyed. With the support of the Republic, General Leia Organa leads a brave resistance. She is desperate to find her brother Luke and gain his help in restoring peace and justice to the galaxy. Leia has sent her most daring pilot on a secret mission to Jakku, where an old ally has discovered a clue of Luke's whereabouts. Okay, so let's look. What is important in this text? Well, we see that Luke Skywalker has vanished, and the First Order has risen from the ashes, and the Empire is looking for Luke Skywalker. And we also see that Leia Organa is leading a resistance, and she is sending her most daring pilot on a mission to try and rescue Luke. So let's see how I incorporated those main points and kind of made it more compact in a summary. Here is an acceptable summary. In the movie Star Wars, there are two factions fighting for power. The First Order, the bad guys, and the Resistance, the good guys. The First Order is looking for Luke Skywalker, the last Jedi, and the rebels' hope for bringing peace to the galaxy. On the planet of Jakku, an ally of the rebels has discovered a clue to Luke's location, and the rebels intend to investigate. So here is an acceptable summary of the previous texts. It's about as short as I can make it, I think, while including all of the necessary points for the reader to understand the information they need to know. So I've included, and notice that I have left out characters such as Leia, who is really secondary to understanding the main points. We really just need to know that there are two factions fighting for power, and that one of them is looking for Luke Skywalker. Okay. All right, now let's take a look at an unacceptable summary. In Star Wars, we are told that a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Luke Skywalker, the last Jedi, has vanished, and the evil First Order will not rest until Skywalker is killed. Leading the resistance and desperate to find her brother Luke, General Leia Organa sends her bravest pilot to Jakku, where an ally has discovered a clue to Luke's location. So this is an unacceptable summary because I've taken a lot of chunks of the original texts and included them in my summary, as well as merely replaced a few original words with a synonym. So even though it's shorter, the structure of the sentences are very much the same. And you could tell that I have not written this from memory. I have written it by looking at the original text and taking some of that and copying and pasting it into this next text. Okay. So let's discuss some strategies on how to summarize. First, you need to read the text. It's impossible to even begin to summarize without reading the text first. All right. Second, after you read or while you're reading, take notes. Jot down a few key words and ideas, some main points. And now, after you have done that, put it away. Put the main text away. And I even suggest putting your notes away, because that is tempting as well. You don't want to look at it while you're writing. You want to work from memory. Naturally, if you work from memory, you will generate these words, a word structure that is completely your own. It sounds impossible, but it is true. It can happen. So state the main idea in your own words, not looking at the text. And be careful to not mix your opinion into summary. That is something that is a slippery slope in summarizing, because if you are doing it correctly, it's natural to insert your opinion or a bias into it. So be careful you try to remain as objective as possible. And when you reread your summary, look for words that might suggest that you have some kind of opinion about this. A summary is not an interpretation of the text. It is a shortened, condensed version of it where the wording has been changed. And finally, check your summary against the original. If you used any exact phrases, make sure they are in quotation marks. Right? And finally, can you boil it down any further? If so, do so and remove any unnecessary details. Right? Again, you want the reader to understand the main idea. They don't need to know any details or information that may be unnecessary to understanding the main point. Okay, moving on to paraphrasing. So, unlike summarizing, paraphrasing is almost like a translation. It's taking something written in a particular style and changing the words to make it clear for your reader. All right? And this is especially in a way to achieve greater clarity, especially if you're writing something in a scientific discipline and something is using technical jargon. The text that you are taking the idea from is using very technical jargon, but you're writing for a general audience. You're translating the text so a general audience can understand what is being said scientifically. Okay? Let's take a look at an example of a paraphrased text. So here's the original text. The authors studied the effects of sub-zero temperatures on the mortality of Rattus norvegicus. All right. As a general reader, I may be slightly confused on what exactly that means. So let's look at a paraphrased version. This study looked at how rats were able to survive or not in very cold temperatures. So this is a simplified version. I've taken the scientific name for rats, for Rattus norvegicus, and translated it to what a general audience might see this word as. And I've changed sub-zero temperatures to cold temperatures and mortality to being able to survive. So paraphrasing is not shortening the text, but changing the wording to simplify it and make it more clear for the reader. Here's another example. Researchers found rats formed an equally strong association between the pleasurable effects of eating Oreos and a specific environment as they did between cocaine or morphine in a specific environment. Okay, let's take a look at the paraphrased version. The study looked at the similarity between the highs produced by sugary junk food and specific drugs in the way that rats responded by wanting to be where those substances were available. So again, the original text is slightly more complex in vocabulary and technical discourse than the paraphrased version. So, when paraphrasing someone else's opinion, use words that make this fact evident. All right, so again, we're working with paraphrasing here. And if you are paraphrasing someone's opinion, so this is not, a scientific study, you want to make sure that it is the author's opinion and not your own opinion, and to be clear about that. So here is the original text. It must be said that some of her digressions are more interesting than her main story. And the paraphrased version. Joan Akoshella warns readers that the main story of the book is sometimes not as engaging as the author's tangents. So I've specifically incorporated the writer or the author of the text that I'm paraphrasing into my text and indicating what she thinks about her review of this other story that she's working with. So I've made that clear and not just paraphrased it as if it were objective. Okay. So some tips for paraphrasing. Similar to summarizing, the first thing you want to do is read the text. As soon as you read it, put it away. Don't look at it while you're working on it. Then state the ideas in your own words. Don't change the meaning of the text or the order it's in. And check your paraphrase against the original. If you used any exact phrases, make sure they are in quotation marks. And if it still sounds like the text, but with only slightly different word choices here and there, then you need to do more work with it. Either changing the sentence structure, taking out something unnecessary that is just going to confuse readers, or finding different words to replace the original words. All right, finally, I'd like to recognize some sources I used for that gave me some ideas for coming up with this PowerPoint slide. And they are listed there. You can check them out if you would like to see what they have to say about paraphrasing, summarizing, and avoiding plagiarism in general. Thank you.
Yay!